Hello, everybody. Dark Phoenix Ninja 92 here. Or a bit of a different type of video. This is going to be my attempt at a critical look at EA's remake of Star Wars Battlefront from 2015, and why I think it's an absolutely terrible game. Now, I've recently been playing a lot of the Battlefront 2 game from back in like 2003 or whatever, and really enjoying it, and also playing some of the EA remake just because I do own it. And when I've been playing the two, I've been noticing a lot of differences between them, and not good differences in the sense of EA improving things that weren't so great in the original game, but in the sense of them making it worse. So, despite EA's Battlefront being newer and having the advantage of better graphics and the like, it is by far a worse game. So, with that preamble out of the way, let's get into what the problems with this Battlefront actually are.
Now, I'm someone who primarily plays video games for their story, and I'm not really into the idea of deathmatch style multiplayer, where I'm just trying to kill everyone on the opposite team repeatedly until I die, and then rinse and repeat over and over again. So, when I first found out that EA's Battlefront was not going to include any form of single-player campaign, it put a serious damper on my enjoyment of that game. The old Battlefront 2 game from back in 2005 did include a campaign, and in my opinion, it was a pretty damn good one. It covered the Clone Wars era and a good chunk of the Rise of the Empire and Rebellion eras. It may have taken a couple of liberties with keeping time and motivations, but it was a solid story, and did a good job. After that, though, to see EA take the idea of a single-player story in the excellent atmosphere they'd managed to provide in this new Battlefront game and just throw that idea out the window was honestly kind of a slap in the face for me, and I was not pleased by that in the slightest. Now, it's one thing to not include a single-player campaign, which pissed me off to no end, but at the end of the day, it did not really significantly alter the way the game itself played. It is, however, completely another thing to remove a core game mechanic that had been a feature in the previous Battlefront games. Seriously, EA, what the fuck were you thinking? I don't care what you say, there is no goddamn justification for this shit. Not only did they go, nope, don't need it, throw it out for the space battles, which were, I remind you, a core mechanic in the previous game, but they proceeded to sell them to the player in the form of a piece of insulting and downright shitty piece of stupidly overpriced DLC. Yes, for those of you who aren't aware, EA sold a single space battle, the Death Star Trench Run, for $15. For that ridiculous price, you just got the Death Star Trench Battle, where you can take part in the attack on the Death Star or defend it from the rebels. That's right, you don't even get space battles for every planet you're fighting over, like you practically did in Battlefront 2. You just get the Death Star. That is it. Seriously, EA, $15 fucking for a single space battle. That is quite frankly insulting. In fact, it's worse it's worse than being charged for a mechanic that should have been included in the first place. This is quite literally EA mocking us by saying, this is what we could have put in the game, but we're not going to. But you can have a little tiny taste sampling of it if you give us money. Fuck you, EA. Fuck you. The number of planets in this game is pitifully small. Battlefront 2 had at least a dozen ground combat locations available, not including what you could get access to by modding the game, but modding's a topic for a different point. Moving on, compared to that, this game has only about 6 planets. 6! And 2 of those are sold for $15 per planet as DLC. No, I am not joking here. This fucking game and goddamn EA are selling planets for $15 a piece. Frankly, the lack of options for where I can fight is just an insult. I'm sorry, but Hoth, Tatooine, and Endor are not sufficient planets to fight over. As someone who does not want to spend money on buying more. That is all I have to say about this topic. This particular subject is so aggravating that I can't even think of anything else to say about it. Next topic! Now, let me be perfectly clear here. I am not a fan of season passes, even when they're done well and actually give you money off the DLC. So, when EA decided to sell a season pass that costs as much as the goddamn game itself, I absolutely went ballistic. This crap is the reason why I waited until Battlefront EA was on sale to get it, and why I refuse, even to this day, to buy a single piece of their downloadable content. This bullshit is just an insult. There's not really much more that can be said about this. On release, the Season Pass costs $50 and the game costs $60. The Season Pass may only be $30 now, but the point still stands. EA is charging almost as much as their full game for a fucking Season Pass. I do not buy Season Passes, and nobody else should either. But, since I don't want this to turn into a rant about Season Pass bullshit, I will just move on. The decision to not include the Galactic Conquest mode in Battlefront EA still baffles me. I really have no idea what on earth EA could have been thinking when they made that particular decision. Removing one of the truly unique features that made Battlefront special is one of the most perplexing things about that game. Being able to do what was essentially Risk as a full game mode in Battlefront 2 was one of the most interesting and unique experiences I've had in a video game in a very long time. And it was more than a little unfortunate to learn that this new Battlefront did not have anything even remotely similar. It was really quite unfortunate that they decided that it was a good idea to exclude what, to me at least, was one of the most iconic and unique parts of the original Battlefront series. One thing that EA's Battlefront did an especially bad job at is making each battle feel unique and interesting. The battles were pretty much just carbon copies of each other, with nothing really unique about them in any way. On a related note, these battles also didn't encourage teamwork or different tactical approaches. In Battlefront 2, choke points, flanking, and supporting your attack force with multiple units from all classes were all important things to do. It is also possible to take multiple approaches to victory. If flooding an entrance with troops didn't work out for you, you could adjust your strategy and attack from a different direction, or change what class makeup you were using and push your enemy back that way. Not so in Battlefront EA. In that game, you can quite literally win by throwing soldiers at your enemy over and over until they die. It is quite possible to to drown your enemy in corpses. This is made even more prevalent by the fact that this remake of Battlefront has removed the reinforcement system. What this means for the gameplay is that the entirety of both sides can literally die thousands of times in a single match with no drawback of any kind, except for a little bit of lost time. Now, this point is going to be even more personal preference than the others, but it bothers me quite a bit. Battlefront EA had something they do with their backdrops that I'm really irritated by. There are several points in the various game modes where you can see a Mon Calamari cruiser and an Imperial Star Destroyer fighting it out in the skies. The irritating part of this is that these battles are quite literally just there to look pretty. There is absolutely no way to interact with them. If you happen to get access to a fighter, you can't just head over to the warships fighting it out and start taking out their systems to help out the one that's on your side. And this annoys the hell out of me. If these ships are battling it out in the background, let me have an effect on that battle. I should be able to jump into a fighter or bomber and start blasting away at the enemy's ships. It's to help my side's capital ship win. I don't want to just stare at the battle and go, "Ooh, that's pretty," which is quite literally what I have to do at this moment. This one may be a little bit controversial, but I was not at all pleased that this game only took place within the context of the original trilogy and didn't include the prequels. Because, unlike a lot of people, I actually quite liked the prequel movies, even if the dialogue was kind of crap. It was quite unfortunate to me to find out that Battlefront was only going to cover the original trilogy. I wanted to be able to take command of the Clone Army and fight massive battles for control of Geonosis, or fight a CIS fleet over Coruscant. The fact that I'm limited to original trilogy locations really gets on my nerves. Some of the locations in the prequels were my favorite places to fight at in Battlefront 2, and not even being given the option, I have to say, that's something I find more than a little bit infuriating. Now, as far as I'm aware, this is more of an engine limitation than an actual conscious decision by EA to screw over people who like modding, but the point still stands. This game literally cannot be modded, which is an absolute slap in the face for fans of the original games. A good chunk of what I enjoyed about Battlefield 2 was that there were quite literally hundreds of mods for everything from adding new maps to fight over to total conversions that turned Battlefront 2 into a Mass Effect game. Compare this to the modding scene for this Battlefront, which, if you go on the Nexus for this particular game, there is quite literally one mod. One. After it being out for almost 2 years. And that is unacceptable to me. But the sheer variety of choices in terms of modding the original Battlefront series gave those games such longevity that modding became something that I started to consider a vital part of Battlefront. So it's more than a little unfortunate that the remake cannot be modded. Granted, as I said, I'm told by some people that this is primarily because of the engine that it's built on, but I still think that modding it could have been possible if EA had actually been bothered to put in the effort to make the game moddable rather than just deciding it wasn't worth it. Now, the DLC for this game is much more problematic than just being unreasonably overpriced for what they're giving you, which isn't much. As it is right now, players who didn't get the DLC for certain maps, like Cloud City and Scarif, for instance, can't play on those maps with players that do own it. This has the effect of creating two separate communities of players. To use a description of this that I first heard from Captain Shack on the XP Gamers, the haves and have-nots, if you will. And the biggest example of this is the Battle of Jakku DLC, which was a pre-order bonus, where players who pre-ordered the game would be able to play the Battle of Jakku, a story element from the upcoming, at the time this game was released, upcoming Force Awakens movie. And the people who didn't pre-order weren't able to get access to it, because I bought this game ages after it came out and obviously did not pre-order it, and thus I am not able to get access to the Battle of Jakku DLC. So that is a piece of content that was locked behind a paywall, and if you didn't give the developers money before you knew what this product was going to be like, they would keep it from you. This kind of thing is really quite infuriating, and I believe has a negative effect, but this is also one of the reasons why I am not particularly fond of this game, as you might be able to tell. Well, that will do it as far as my points go on why I think Battlefront is terrible. I had one or two more, but I decided to remove them because they were veering a little bit more towards being ridiculously biased, and I didn't want to put that out there. I'm talking things like because the game was published by EA and things like that, which I decided I would just not put in here because it would seem a touch ridiculous to have that kind of thing as a justification for this. But in any case, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and coming up I'm probably going to be doing a top 10, or however many I come up with, reasons why Battlefront 2 is excellent, just to sort of do something a little bit more positive, because I don't like being negative and just saying how this is why I think this particular game sucks. That's not something I'm fond of doing, but this has been on my mind for a while now, so I decided that I might as well do it. But in any case, I'm going to call a close to this video here. This has been Dark Phoenix Ninja 92. Thank you very much for watching my why I think Battlefront EA sucks, and I hope you'll join me next time for my next video. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time. See you then, folks. See you then.